Man, what a fun week. Fun week here on 95.7 The Game.
Did you like that 538 take?
538.
It's all good, yeah. It has been a week for us. I don't know what kind of a week it's been for the 49ers. I mean, if I had thrown all of this at you last Friday, okay?
No.
Go back to last Friday. And I had said, okay, because remember, all we were doing was, well, this scenario could happen, and this scenario could happen, and we had 28 different scenarios.
I didn't have typhoon on that flow chart.
And none of them had L to the Bears.
No.
Thank you.
I forget about the rest of it. I was wrong.
If I gave you, all right, next Friday, the 49ers will be 0-1. George Kittle will not be playing. Eli Mitchell is out for half the season, and we have rumors of Trey Lance
drill tip
videos.
Yeah, drill tip videos.
How we doing?
Oh, boy.
How we doing, 49ers?
Well,
How's it going?
Just get a win on Sunday.
I mean,
I heard Mike Martz on the show yesterday. I'm just like, oh,
what do they say? Victory is the greatest deodorant? Holy moly, this team needs a bath.
They absolutely need it. But here's
good.
Am I wrong?
Here's the thing,
I mean, get out of there, did we?
all so focused on the way people are treating Trey. And I've sort of decided that this is the dynamic, and this is why, whether you want to talk about bringing Jimmy back or whatever the 49ers have done over the last year and a half, here's the problem. You're all right. We are all right. It is not fair to Trey Lance to not have patience. Can we all agree on that?
Agreed.
Okay. It is also not fair for this organization with this roster to ask its veteran players and its fans to be patient. Neither of these are fair. And it is not possible to not do one. You got to pick one. So that's why we're sitting here playing tennis. We're playing 49er tennis for 18 weeks.
Yeah.
It's not fair. And that's what, when I look at this, when I look at what the organization has done, I'm pretty close to one of these two sort of points. Either you picked the wrong guy or you were wildly unfair to him.
Huh.
I don't know. Doesn't it have to be one of those?
I got to let it marinate because it's a thought that I hadn't really considered yet. Honestly, Mark.
I don't know what Trey Lance. You either picked the wrong guy or you treated him horribly.
See, I don't think it necessarily has to be that absolute.
What do you mean?
And what I mean is, like, let's say in a couple of weeks, the Niners are, I don't know, 2-4, 1-3, whatever. Mm-hmm. And Kyle Shanahan says, you know what, we're going to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean you picked the wrong guy. That doesn't mean Trey Lance is a bust. That doesn't mean Trey Lance isn't going to be a good quarterback at some point.
But it means you're unfair to him.
Well, possibly.
Right? Like
sports isn't fair. Sports isn't fair.
Are you really being unfair to him? Because part of that would be he's not performing at a level.
Like Joey Bart getting sent back down. Totally different circumstances and what they're asking him. And then he comes back up and looks a lot better.
Yeah, but who gets that at this position is, I guess, my point. My point is if you're going to pick a guy at this position and you want to be patient and you want to allow him to become him, then you have to allow him time to do that. And if you don't give him time to do that, and they're not, it doesn't appear they are. They can't afford giving. Then is that fair? Is that realistic?
Well, I think the organization, because, like, again, if you know the nuances of Joe, and when he first came in, he was coming in for DeBerg, and DeBerg was, he'd win a little here and there. Joe was overwhelmed early on. Then you flash forward, Steve was awful with Tampa Bay. He comes here as a reclamation project, coming in certain circumstances, certain situations, up and down performances, and he was getting yo-yoed back and forth, and they were yo-yoing both back and forth. I see what you're saying, but those times were so different. I feel I can't correlate the 80s to now.
They were so different, and
it's so different.
Even as controversial as that was, we're still watching documentaries about it 30 years later, and they're all ticked off.
Pissed.
And as complicated as that was, what did they have? Time.
Yeah.
Nobody was kicking seasons out into the street because you either had Joe Montana or Steve Young. And so that's the problem. When you have a high-level rookie quarterback, first-year starter, whatever you want to call him, he needs time, and we don't have it.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and AC1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app. Download the Odyssey app and favorite 95.7 The Game for the best and most up-to-date sports coverage. And do not forget, as you can also watch us on our YouTube and Twitch streams. Just log on and search 95.7 The Game. Thanks for another great week, Roasters. The fair part. If you want to go to the fair part,
Life's
I will
not
say
fair.
the team, and life is not fair. Pro sports is not fair. However, I do think the organization could have done a better job of addressing the offensive line. That, to me, was the biggest knock. And I've been all over it all season.
We talked about it ad
the
nauseam.
offensive line. Laken Tomlinson walks, okay, you don't want to pay him and make him a top 5 offensive lineman in the league. But you have a young asset in Trey Lance. The worst thing you could do is put him out there and not know who's going to play left guard, right guard, and center. And we all highlight that as the weakness of that offensive line. How is a young quarterback going to thrive when he's facing multiple pressures? So when you want to talk about the fair part, I think the organization failed him in maybe addressing the offensive line with a better sense of urgency, especially knowing the unknown with Alex Mack.
Yeah, I just keep coming back to it's more fair to take Trey Lance out, and if you're not winning and he's not performing, and you go to Garoppolo, and hopefully you win at that point.
You
Like,
just
let's
have
say
to
you're
win,
1-3,
yeah.
2-4, whatever. You get to 10-7,
Right.
you make the playoffs. If Jimmy rides it out, and there's no guarantee Jimmy would necessarily ride it out. He could get hurt or maybe
Underperform.
Yeah, maybe he underperforms. But what I'm getting at is it's less fair to keep Trey Lance in there if he's incapable of earning you wins, because if he looks like he can't perform at a certain level and you're not winning and you keep rolling and you get to the end of the year with all the expectations that this team had, then we are having a conversation about what's he going to be. Like, to me, like, you can almost, and I think Kyle Shanahan knows this now, you can kick the can down the road in terms of, hey, Jimmy comes in, saves this season, you win. People are not going to come down Shanahan's road if you win.
Yeah.
And now it's, all right, Jimmy's gone, I think.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
But
He's
I mean,
going
who
to come
knows?
save
But-
another
but
season
then
and
it's-
win, and then
well-
you're going to kick him?
Well, but then it's hey, Trey, like, now it's year 3, and now, like, you got to develop behind the scenes, and you got to.
This is why I called it a hedge, though. This is why I called it a hedge, whatever it was, 10, 12, 14 days ago.
Well, it was.
Exactly. And so when I say not fair, yeah, life's not fair, big sports, it's not fair. Of course, that's all very true. But it's just, this is what's ringing in my head. People are going, it's week 1. You have to have patience. Well, okay, first of all, the organization is not at a time where we or they can afford patience. And then the flip side of that is it's completely unrealistic to ask Trey Lance to come out and just go be awesome and win this quickly. And if that's unrealistic, and you're gonna Jason LaConfort is like they might pull him after this week. If that's the case,
If they lose,
yeah. If they lose,
Anything's on the table.
right? But
They
lose
pull him
those
after
2
week
games?
2.
that's not
That's
fair
an
to Trey
indictment.
Lance.
Yeah, that's an indictment
It's
on
not-
the coaching staff, and that's an
you're-
indictment on the front office.
You're right. You're asking a guy to do something that we all agree is next to impossible, but then if he doesn't do it, you got this thing hanging over your right shoulder, number 10. I just.
But
I don't
number
know.
10 was the quarterback last year. It started 2-4. Number 10 was also the quarterback who had this team 3-5
Right,
at points last year. So
but he had
it just
also
feels
been-
like a lot of revisionist
But
history.
he'd been to a Super Bowl, Joe. He'd been to a Super Bowl. We're
Neil
talking
O'Donnell
about.
been to a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
you know
but-
what I'm saying? Kerry Collins went to a Super
But
Bowl.
his record is. But his
He has a
record
track
is his
record of
record.
winning, though,
This
with the
guy's. You're
49ers.
right. This guy was.
That's true.
He's a
You get some
starting
benefit of the
quarterback.
doubt there.
He's
What's their
winning-
record without Kittle?
Oh no, it's Debo and Kittle. When they Bosa and Debo. When they have Bosa and Debo, they're like 20 games over
You guys,
500.
Because
come
to
on.
me,
You know,
you're insulting my
quarterbacks are
intelligence.
Of course it
if you
is.
say
Of course it
Garoppolo led
is.
them to the NFC Championship
It's-
last year. You played good in spurts.
Remove the word. It doesn't matter. JD's right. The guy has won at a 70% clip his whole career. He's been now in the playoffs deep twice. You can choose the word led, guide, got pulled, dragged, whatever. He's got cachet in the league, and Trey Lance doesn't. So it's a totally separate conversation about when you start out 2-4. Let's be honest, okay? At Denver, Rams, two trips to the
games.
East.
Huge.
How long?
But even if
is
I
this
told you Jimmy was the starting quarterback, looking at it on paper, I'd say 2-2 would be good coming out of those 4 games.
And I totally
whether it's
get
Jimmy
that.
or not.
The point of why
I
this
also
was,
overrated Denver, probably.
The point of why this was so crazy on August 29th was exactly this. The way I stated it that day was you have now paved a road
It's
with
true.
tons of potholes.
I can't deny that.
And you have no control over whether or not you're going to hit them.
Yeah.
And week 1, they've already hit 2. They've already hit 2 potholes.
Wow.
So this is what you set up.
But does he get the benefit of the doubt if George Kittle doesn't play this Sunday?
No,
that
he's
would
not
be
gonna get
3
any
or 4
benefit of the
starts
doubt.
without your star tight end who's
Nuance
not on the
doesn't
field.
matter anymore. Like
I
not
guess,
maybe
well,
for us in this room,
right.
But I let's be honest. Like people want their pound of flesh.
You should still be able to beat Seattle.
No, I'm with you
should.
on that. I
You
agree.
should.
And you should be able to
You should
beat
beat the Bears.
So I like.
And we
Can we
can't
say
blame
a
the
prayer?
Bears game on Trey.
If you win, you can't. But when you don't win it, you go back and you look at his line,
And it's all fair to
it's
be
not,
critiqued.
and it's not a good line. And he missed this throw or made that. And look, I think he made 4
Right.
or 5 really excellent throws.
Yeah, he did.
Like that's
Right.
great. But if you win the game, then that's acceptable enough to win the game. Like the thing that I keep coming back to, and I hated saying it, but we watched Jimmy Garoppolo put up a mediocre stat lines, and the way he did it, they'd win. That game specifically, like the Chicago bad team on the road, not a perfect game. He does some good things, does some bad things. Even if they're down 13-10, I just keep coming back to how many times they're down 13-10 against a bad team. He leads them down for a touchdown. He leads them down to tie the game. And it's not on Trey Lance that
Right.
they didn't win, but he just has that ability. Like he's a unique player in the sense that he can be average or mediocre or slightly above or way below week to week, but it works somehow.
Context matters until it doesn't. So, like, I bet we could throw out statements that could get everybody in the room to agree. Okay? Is it fair? Is it right that we are already discussing a benching of Trey Lance?
No.
Okay.
we
But
haven't
it's
done that
also
on our
pro
show.
sports.
Yes.
Hold on, right. So
it's also pro sports.
So we all agree.
I questioned Klay Thompson starting in an NBA game. The guy
Right.
had more equity than anyone on the Niners.
So we all agree that's not fair. Okay, next statement. Would we be having this conversation if Jimmy wasn't on the team?
No.
No, I
Okay.
do think a lot of
So-
people would still be having the wow, Jimmy would have won that
Right,
game
right,
conversation,
right.
not to
But
play
we
him.
wouldn't-
I
Combo
agree.
wouldn't have
But
been
we-
as
Yeah.
intense.
Yes.
We
It
would
wouldn't
not
this
be
intense.
using
It
the
would be
word
Brock
bench.
Purdy.
And,
We
I'm
would-
not
we
even
would-
saying they should have started him or anything like that.
Right.
Like they made the decision they were going to, but when you make that decision, you are held accountable to what it used to look like
Exactly.
when the other guy was in there.
So we'd be assessing his play, but we wouldn't be talking about a benching. And then the third statement is this. Do we all agree the 49ers absolutely knew when they brought Jimmy back that they were opening themselves up to this?
I underestimated it. I admit it.
So these are all to me unarguable statements, and it leads you to the conclusion for me, at least in this moment, like, yeah, you all right. They win 31-14 on Sunday. We're good, and we're back on
even
track.
then, I feel like we'll find something to pick
no,
apart.
like this is going to be a story.
Last week to me was
It's
a
a
lose-lose
story.
situation.
It's a week-to-week thing.
Yeah,
now.
course
but
it
last
is.
week was a lose-lose
Series to
situation to me
series.
because if they do win the game, it's, well, you beat the Bears, you should have won that game. So it was like he still wasn't going to get that credit no matter what.
But it's nowhere near
losing
as
the
loud.
game made people like, oh my
Right.
gosh, there's Jimmy, he wins that game. You just heard JD. And then we look at the monsoon game last year against the Colts and they got smoked in that
Right,
game.
right.
You know
No,
what I'm saying?
right.
yeah, but I think they would have been in. It would have been in hand before that.
I don't know if that's on Trey.
It's not about
Debo
being,
fumbles inside the 20.
it's
Debo's not fumbling.
it's
No,
not
they
about-
lost to the Colts. They lost to the Colts and the Cardinals. Cardinals were playing a backup quarterback. Like we could pick apart many
Sure,
games
right.
where Jimmy has underperformed or not given him.
Sure.
Opening week 2020 when he blows Kittle off the field and then he goes down the field and throws an interceptable pass after interceptable pass, and
doubt.
they lose to a very garbage Arizona team at home.
And why did we not talk about benching him?
No, we did.
No. There wasn't. There was.
We did.
There was. Well, you guys
Yeah,
did.
we did.
there was no realistic option.
We're not going to Nicky Mullins.
Until you got to the Rams
I
game that
agree
we
there.
all know he had to win or else the season
Yeah.
was
The
kind of
Bears
over.
game he had to win in
Absolutely.
Chicago.
Absolutely. So there were those situations, but it's not about whether or not we assess this being Trey's fault. Of course it's not Trey's fault. He's 22 years old, and this is going to be his fourth start. There is nothing he can do that's quote-unquote Trey's fault this weekend. I mean, sure, he can throw 5 picks, but it's not about whether it's Trey's fault. It is the stew that the 49ers have stirred, and it is sitting here, and we're asking people not to eat it. and they're starving. It's crazy. Like there was no way it wasn't going to go this way.
And let's be honest, and I think this goes back to you, Bonte, where you're holding others account. You're holding the franchise and Kyle and all of that. They thought they were good enough to
agree.
They thought they were good enough to. We're going to bring Jimmy back, and got the Bears and Seahawks first couple weeks.
Yep.
And Trey may have a solid game, the game that he was on the way to having
Right.
in Chicago. But I'm going to win those games and going to be 2-0.
Right.
And even if Trey's solid, Garoppolo-ish in the 2 games, it's 2-0, and then nobody's really talking about benching him at that point because you're
Right.
2-0, everything's on schedule. Let's see what he does the next 2 games.
Yep.
And if you win one of those 2, you're 3-1, and you got one of those 2's a quality win at Denver, Rams at home. Those are, you pick one, they're both quality
Right.
wins.
Yes.
Denver's a hell of an environment. So at that point, then you're going to Carolina and Atlanta, and like they're thinking this thing through, and they'll say they're not. They're week to week.
No,
and all
they're
that, but they're absolutely
Yeah.
thinking, hey, we're going to be
Absolutely.
4-2, and Trey's going to
Yep.
be at worst Jimmy-esque,
Right.
And we're just going to be steadfast, and Jimmy's the backup,
Yep.
and da-da-da-da-da. Well, you lost the first game.
Right.
Flips the whole table completely over.
Totally. And it makes this Sunday 18 times bigger than it was. Number one. And
It's
number two,
humongous.
it's so big.
big.
Let me
It's
add,
humongous.
Let me add something else, JD. You just brought up those next 2 games, both quality wins. Do you all realize that both of them are primetime national TV games?
Monday night against the Rams,
Sunday
Sunday night against
yep.
Denver.
So here's what you're looking
And
at.
don't forget, you get the Chiefs coming up after that stretch you're talking
Okay, you
You
about.
got Tampa.
Here's what you're-
Chargers on Sunday Night Football.
Here's what you're looking at if you don't win Sunday. You're looking at Sunday night football against Russell Wilson, and you're walking in there 0-2.
Oh, we've talked about that.
And then Monday night
Mark.
football at Levi Stadium the week later against the reigning Super Bowl champions and your rival from LA. And we're supposed to act like,
No, I
have patience.
And a game you dominated last year.
Right.
At home, Monday night
So
Rams.
that's why this isn't fair. Trey totally needs and deserves patience, and there's no way we can ask anyone for it.
I agree with that. And we were talking about this earlier this week. I thought Durant, Steph was pretty heavily scrutinized. This is on a whole nother level. This has got Heatles. First couple weeks of the Heatles. I'm talking about when LeBron went down there. And we're talking about LeBron. That's what it feels like from a national level in terms of scrutiny.
So you guys have Baldy coming up at 9:30. We're going to wrap, and I guess it's going to be a lot more breaking down Seattle. What else is happening?
Yeah, no, Baldy is coming on. We got all kinds of good stuff. I mean, we're going to dive into this because this
Kapler?
game. No, not Gabe Kapler. No.
Hey, they're fighting.
No,
They're fighting.
Yeah,
One beat the Braves, 2 out of 3. How about that?
This is going to be a football show. But I want to know. I want to know, JD. This has become such an incredibly huge game. Joe Theismann, by the way, also at 10.
Oh, that's
so we'll have
huge.
another
Theismann for Heisman.
No, yeah,
Oh.
Theismann for Heisman is coming up at 10 a.m. So we'll have another big-time former guy who played the position's thoughts on what he's seeing.
Oh, Football Life debuts tonight. Ooh, NFL Network. I love me a good Football Life.
Yep.
Can't wait to watch that. All
All right,
right,
boys.
You guys have a good show.